Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. DIY, do it yourself. It's a term we've come to use for all the things we decide not to delegate to other people. Painting your house, DIY it or hire a painter. Adjusting the hem on a skirt, DIY it or take it to the tailor. But for parenting, the only option is DIY. No amount of outsourcing, no amount of childcare or party planners or food delivery services, none of it takes the DIY out of parenting. That's just how consequential a thing it is to be a parent. No matter what you delegate to other people, the role of parent is truly only one you can do yourself. This whole DIY existential musing was inspired by this week's guest, who is a quintessential DIYer in all facets of her life. Orly Shani got her start in TV in 2012 as a designer on NBC's competition show Fashion Star. Since then, she hasn't slowed down with her own shows and guest hosting gigs across E!, NBC, and Hallmark, all as a style and DIY expert. Her YouTube channel, The DIY Designer, is a popular destination for giving your closet big upgrades in unexpected ways. She's a regular contributor to The Today Show, including earlier this week, and that's just everything before she became a founder of her slam dunk accessories brand, Rocknot. The backdrop of Orly's world and central to it is her family. Her parents and her siblings are her inspiration for so much of who she is. And she's raising her two kids the only way she knows how. Full throttle DIY. This episode is one where you think, what might my kids become if I live in a way that is authentic to who I am? If I show them rather than tell them what I value. Enjoy. Share with a friend. Welcome to the closet. What we do is we're going to start with little Orly. You grew up here, right?
Yeah.
We're going to start up with like little Orly, little Los Angeles baby, to today, mom of two, entrepreneur, business owner, and cover all the shit that comes up in between.
I
love kids, career.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, so Orly, you grew up in LA.
Yeah.
Are you like Valley Girl LA or the other side of
Valley
LA?
Girl. I grew up in Calabasas, born in Van Nuys, like 5 minutes from where I live now, and then moved to Calabasas when I want to say I was probably like, I don't know, 3 or 4, something like that.
Now, was that before, like, that was like before the world knew about Calabasas?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, my parents wanted it because of the schools. So that's why they picked it at the time. It was not what it is now. There were no like really the gated communities and all that stuff came later. It was beautiful, but it was almost like Woodland Hills. Like if you know the area at all, it felt like Woodland Hills, but just like a teeny bit newer.
Yeah.
And that's why they picked it. And then I would say like by the time I was in high school, it had its reputation.
Yeah.
Like it already had that. It was like the joke was that like the student parking lot was nicer than the faculty parking lot, like eye roll obnoxiously so.
Yeah.
So it had that by the time I was in high school.
And growing up, do you have siblings?
Yeah. I have an older sister. She's a year and a half older than me.
Oh my God, your whole face just started smiling.
Oh, she's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my family is just beyond. My sister, Avia, she's amazing, a year and a half older than me. And then a younger brother, 5 years younger than me, Ben. And he's like my creative soulmate. We work on everything together. He's like the most supportive. He's a videographer, photographer. He is such like a genius at what he does. And he's such a mensch. Like he's so generous that he's always lent his skill set, his eye, all of his, like gear, everything to whatever project I'm working on. So everything that I ever have done looks so much more legit and professional right out the gate because of him.
So I think that this is the dream, right? When people have 3 kids and they go through like the really hard investment of having 3 kids, I can't do that. I'm not built for it. I'm just not built for it. Yeah. I respect people who are. The dream is to get what you guys have, like 3 kids who are super close and love each other.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. And like,
Were you guys always like that? Like even as kids?
well, my brother and I got a lot closer as we got older because he was a baby for so long that like we weren't in the same world, you know, like he was a boy and he was 5 years younger. And when you're little, 5 years is everything. And you're just not in the same vibe. Like you don't care about the same stuff. The same stuff's not funny. You have no, you know, it's just, you're just in a different world. But once we got to like, whatever, I moved to New York at 19 and like, by the time I came home, you know, like he was like an adult and I was an adult and we were both adults. So at that point, super close. My sister and I had a harder time when we were younger because we were so close in age that it was like we were existing in the exact same place.
Same
and we
friends around.
Sort of same friends, but I think we were just, I have like a real need to be, and I actually think I developed this because of her, but like I have a real need to be my own person.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be compared to anyone else. I don't want to be, I'm Orly. I'm not.
It's like having a twin.
Yeah. Like I'm not Avia's little sister. And if you haven't seen my sister, she is beyond stunning. And like coming up under her created a persona in me which was an antithesis to that. Like
totally.
I can't beat Avia at her own game, so I'm gonna beat Orly.
You're gonna make your
like,
own lane.
Orly's not interested in all that bullshit. Orly doesn't care about makeup and like I like actively rejected it so as not to be second best.
Yes.
But it has become so much of who I am, a little bit of that, like, I want to be my own person. I'm not trying to be like anybody else. Like, that has been very, I think it developed there, but it feels so ingrained in me. I don't know that I could ever separate it.
Yeah.
So we went through a time when we were younger that was harder, but we grew out of that and like grew to be so insanely close that now it's like, I mean, she's everything.
That is and were you like, was it like stealing each other's clothes?
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, there was that. Like I would, you know, borrowing clothes and pretending like we didn't, getting a stain on something, you know, you didn't. And you're like, you wore it. And she's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Wore it, and I know you wore, you know, like just stupid stuff. I mean, stupid.
The Oscar goes to.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, just whatever, sister stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you won't know this because you haven't listened, but I'm so interested in birth order, especially when people are close like you guys. Do you identify as being a middle child?
No, but I don't, I have to say,
I don't really know what that means because I think being a middle child is different to every family and like what that means is different to every family. But was there any of that for you or for your house of being like, that's Orly, she's the middle, she does things differently, she does her own
I don't
whatever.
know that I know enough about middle child to know where I fall in like accurately. I've heard people talk about middle child as being a peacekeeper.
Oh, interesting. See, there's like so many different.
There's a million. And in that way, sometimes I could see that. I could see wanting to like dissipate intense energies and try to like get everyone connected, and that I could see. But I don't know that I know enough about it to actually say. I said no instantly, but I actually don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think every family, it's different. I think like there's the peacekeeper one actually makes a lot of sense because you can kind of see everybody's perspectives because you are in the middle.
Right.
There's also the like rebellious stereotype of wanting to be your own person and kind of putting your own stake in the ground. There's a lot of different ones, but I think it's some people, I think probably what's come through the most is, or most like strongly stereotypical so far has been the older child being very like, sometimes anxious, but like organized and feeling like they have to be in control and responsible. And the youngest is just being like a free, mushy, like everybody's baby.
Yeah.
And a little bit less anxious. And obviously, like I have plenty of friends with severe anxiety who are youngest children. Yeah. I think Bet said that. She's like, I'm pretty anxious. Yeah. But I always think it's interesting in families where there's lots of kids. And in my mind, lots of kids is more than two.
Right.
Because I just can't logistically wrap my head around it. So growing up, were there things that you were really into? Because I can imagine some of the things that you've become known for later in life could have started pretty early. Is that the case with you? Yeah,
I mean, I'd say starting in middle school and high school, more of the like style, fashion, clothing, DIY, sewing, all of that stuff started right around there. As a little kid, it was sports. It was like, that's what I did. That's what everybody did, I feel like. But then I think once I started, I wanted to express myself. I mean, it was really that. It's always really been about that.
Yeah.
It's been about, I have just always felt that it is one of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal to express who we are. It's such a visual world. We cannot ignore that. It's like subconscious. We assess the information instantly and we judge it based off of our own story. It's good, it's bad, it's this, it's that, whatever. And so I think I wanted to be known for who I was. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be understood. Those were things I wanted. And so using clothing to do that started young. And it was middle school, high school. And then by the time I was in high school, I started like making and selling stuff while I was in high school.
Already selling stuff.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Were you like, what were the prevailing fashions? I'm trying to figure out like, where does the Juicy Couture velour tracksuit fit in to this
That would have
storyline?
been my like sophomore year of high school, probably. I graduated high school in 2002.
Okay.
So like late
so like-
90s, early
yeah.
2000s, right? That was like right around then. But
Yeah.
like everything that's back now.
Yeah.
Baggy jeans and grungy and 90s. Like that's what it was. That's what we were wearing.
Yes.
Like, so that's, I feel like an old loser who like used to be the same person who like went to Woodstock and judged everyone at Coachella and was like, you're just recycling. I feel like that. I'm like, oh, Gen Z, you think you're original? You're recycling my middle school clothes. Like, I'm like an old lady now, But like, that is what it's like. Literally everything is identical to what I was wearing in middle school and high. Jinkos were my fucking favorite thing in the whole world.
Goes.
With a crop top.
Oh yeah.
Like, we're not messing around here. It was my favorite. My favorite. Yeah.
I went to a Jewish middle school and we had a uniform, and I remember like scouring eBay to try and find Jinkos that conformed with the uniform requirements.
Amazing.
And like, I'm also very tall for a Jewish woman,
Mm-hmm.
so they were like basically capris on me. I mean, it was the most
Perfect.
fucking ridiculous, but I was like, I need to feel different in my uniform.
My daughter goes through that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, now I am almost 40 and I'm like, I would love to have a uniform. Hence my jeans and my black
Yes,
shirt.
exactly. Right. Yeah, and you can.
How times
You're
change.
in charge.
I'm in charge.
Make a damn uniform.
My style language.
Exactly.
Okay, so you start kind of really getting into this in high school. Other people are recognizing like, oh, Orly's like about something. She's got some cool stuff. Your parents, what were they doing professionally?
So my parents are both entrepreneurs, and I think that's like everything. That's everything. It's a combination of stuff. My dad's an immigrant. He moved here from Israel, in his 20s after the army. Moved to Chicago first, which is the only place he knew somebody. It was literally like pumping gas at a gas station, taking English classes at night, learning the language. Now, if you live in Israel, I mean, English is as mandatory a class as math, but at the time it was not. So he came here, he learned English. And then he eventually moved to California where he had a friend and he started his business. He started a wallpaper and paint business. And it was just him. It was him working. And, the importance of learning the language and being someone that people could feel safe having in their home, and that he was responsible and he was, kind and respectful was really like big to him. And because of that, he became very successful very quickly, to the point that he needed to hire help and started being the big man in charge and setting up different guys and different crews on different jobs, and really built for himself like stereotypical American dream, like check all of the boxes, like really amazing. He met my mom, who's born and raised here. He met her early on. I mean, I think they met when my mom was like 19, probably on the beach.
It's a good place to meet somebody.
Yeah, except my dad hates the beach, which is like part of the funny story of it all. He saved her from dudes that were like harassing her on the beach. She was like, my hero. It was like so fucking cute. And so my mom ended up getting her general contractor's license. And so she's a general contractor. And together they sometimes worked on projects, sometimes differently. My mom did a lot of projects for family and friends and sort of did all the renovation, like my house, my sister's house, and so they both, my whole life, there was always this sense that like, you can just make it.
Yeah.
Like the idea that you had to go out and find it was not our thing. It was that you make it.
Yeah.
It was just the way that everything was. You want to have like a cool, whatever. You want to have a party, you have an idea for something. Well, we could make that for each table. Like there was no, let's go out and buy it and see what we can get. Like, let's go to the party supply store. Like, that's just not how we did anything. We went to downtown LA, we got the fabric, we got the this, we got the that. Like, we just always made everything. So that part of me, that like problem solving, get your hands dirty, create something out of nothing was just in my house every day. And the idea of building a business and being an entrepreneur was in my house every day, not going to college.
Right.
Neither of my parents went to college. That was like, I just didn't have a desire. I was like, why would I do that?
And your
like,
parents were like, we get this. We see this. And so when in high school you're like selling stuff, they're like, cool. Like, great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They were probably really proud.
They were. They've always been. You know, it's like, whatever you're going to do, it doesn't matter. Just like, do it well, do it with pride, take it seriously. Like whatever it is you do, there's nothing's better than the other, but like
work hard.
Just do it for real, man. Like don't bullshit your way through this thing.
Yeah.
Do it for real, take it seriously, value people's time, value people's money. Like, come on. Yeah. And so whatever it was going to be, there was no poo-pooing going to school. There was no turning your nose up at this job or that. There was none of that, but it was just like, you better show up.
Yeah.
Like, whatever the thing is going to be, you better show up. We had jobs, 15 and a half, we could get a worker's permit. We all had jobs right away. I worked at Sagebrush Cantina in Calabasas, was a hostess, then a waitress. Like, we paid our car payment. It was, they instilled a work ethic that is like everything.
Yeah.
To me, and the thing I'm most grateful for.
And that has to be in some way, potentially, a divergence with the environment of your high school, right?
For sure.
So did that in some way contribute to this like strong sense of individuality, because you're just on a different track and your family totally gets you, but your peers might not?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the lack of entitlement was what I felt different about. I felt like, you know, my dad made this joke. So his brother Shlomo came to visit from Israel, and at this point, my dad had already become, you know, really successful. We had this beautiful house that they had renovated, you know, project after project, just this beautiful home. And we're sitting in the backyard, and me and my sister and my brother are like running around, we're swimming, and my dad and Shlomo are sitting there, whatever, drinking, talking. And Shlomo says to him, like, you're spoiling them. Because like what they had nothing, right? They had absolutely nothing. And so he's like, you're spoiling them. And my dad was like, what do you want me to do? Like, I've worked so hard to get here. You want me to build a separate house for Des and I? She and I live in one house and they live in another so they can learn. He's like, that's not how we're going to do it. Like, we got to teach it to them, but like, we're not going to do it like that. Like, I'm not going to suffer. I didn't work this hard to not enjoy it.
Yeah.
But he was very aware of how it could go south.
Totally.
And so they did a lot to instill in us that lack of entitlement and that, you know, nothing is given. And and so I think that was something that I felt really different than a lot of friends that I had. I would hear the way that they talk to their parents and I'm like, my dad would slap me across the face if I said that to him. Like, what? Like, I would hear people say things. I'm like, like I would get so just like, you know, so there were like all of these moments I think where I noticed I feel badly saying it now because now I know it's such a beautiful community. Calabasas was such a beautiful community. But at the time, I had a lot of embarrassment about being from there because I thought it meant people would think I was a brat. People would think I'm a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
And I'm an idiot and I'm a valley girl and I think I deserve everything. And like check off every box of like entitled white rich brat is what I thought people would think of me being from Calabasas because that was its reputation. And we were not like that.
Totally.
And so it was hard. That was like a weird one. Now I'm like, it's a beautiful town with great schools and it was safe and people worked really hard to live there.
Yeah.
But when you're 16, you have a whole different view of everything.
Oh, for sure. And I was definitely personally one of those kids who like, I wanted to get out. Like I did not, I needed to have my own identity that was separate from where I did not feel, I felt very much like a fish out of water a lot of the times. The stuff I cared about, the things I was interested in, and like I was laser focused on getting out.
Yeah.
Just like making my own thing, being my own person.
Yeah.
So when you made the decision, I'm not going to go to college, that means you made a decision to do what instead? What was the game plan?
So at the time when I was in high school, I was trying to act. So I was in acting classes and all the fashion stuff was not career. It was stuff I was doing that I loved, but it was not in my mind quite yet a career. And I was trying to act and I was working and auditioning. And when I was 18, right after I graduated high school, that next October, So the next fall, I got a DUI. And I, it was like the best, right? Looking back on it now, the best thing that ever happened, but like the worst thing that ever happened. I was so fucking ashamed. I was so horrified. The whole thing was so bad, but I lost my license.
Yeah.
And I lost it for a year. And I just knew that I could not do anything in LA with no license. And I had always loved New York. And so I decided to spend that year in New York. I got everything transferred to New York. So like, you have to do like AA meetings. There's all these things you have to do when you get a DUI. And I had it all transferred to New York. And I moved to New York at 19 by myself. My mom went out there, helped me find an apartment. I paid for the apartment, but they went out and helped me find it. And I got a job on Craigslist. I was going to school. I went to a New York Film Academy, was taking a directing class, got a job at night to be able to pay my rent and pay my groceries and pay for film and all the stuff that I needed to do. And I just felt like instead of losing a year, You'll
make it count.
Yes, I'll do something with it. And so then I moved to New York.
Now, when the DUI happened, your parents' response was what?
Well, it was two things. Obviously, just like utter disappointment. Like, what in the fuck is this? How did you do this? But I was very aware of how big of a mess up it was that
They didn't have to be that hard on you because they saw how upset you were?
Well, for sure. But I took on every responsibility. Like, it was as though the moment that they picked me up from jail, there was no more conversation around it. I hired a lawyer with money I had saved. I filed all the paperwork. I paid all the fees. I got the insurance. I did everything so that it was like there was no reminder of it.
Right.
So like I did it all. So they were obviously super disappointed. And it, and as a parent, you just wonder like, right, like how could, what did we do wrong? How could we have gotten to a place where you thought this was okay? Like whatever, all the things. And the circumstances of it don't matter. At the time, I tried to explain all the reasons why I wasn't supposed to be the one driving and we had to leave because this person got kicked out of the club, like whatever. And like literally none of it matters. Like there's a million other options that could have happened.
Totally.
Right. So I got really lucky, but yeah, they were really disappointed, but I think they were pleased with how I handled it.
Yeah.
Like I did not ask for help. I did not ask for money. I did not ask for anything. I took care of all of it. I did everything I needed to do, and it was as though it had not happened as far as their inconvenience was
100%.
concerned.
God, that says so much about who you are as a person. Just that's how you problem solve, because ultimately, like, we all have shitty things that happen in our lives, and we then become defined by how we process and deal with them. That already I can tell from you, that is so you.
Yeah.
Like, we've been in here for 15 minutes or whatever, and I'm like, like I could totally see that being the way that you solved it. It's incredible. That's a real lemonade situation. So you get to New Yeark.
Yeah.
And is that experience everything you were hoping it would be?
It was incredible. Yeah, it was incredible. It was supposed to be a year-long course. And it was really, really fun. It was really cool. I remember, and it's interesting now, like going through it, I left feeling like there's a thing that happens when unique, interesting, creative artists go to school. And I actually think it's a bad thing that happens.
Yeah.
I think that you end up being told what is interesting, what is of value, what is cool, what is eye roll, what's embarrassing, all of the things. And you are made to feel as though if you don't see it that way, you're not a real artist and you don't get it. And so you need a little bit more education. And so it creates 60 graduates with a shared brain. And I actually think it's really bad. So like I liked the experience, but I felt like you had to have a tremendous amount of confidence to not get churned through that machine and come out like everybody else, where you lost your own unique perspective. Yeah. Like there is something very commercial about what I think is interesting. Yeah. And I think that that's one of my gifts, but I think that was very much shamed there. Yeah. And like, that's not cool. Yeah. And are you an artist? Or are you going to sell out to the man? Like, it's like so stupid. I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, what are we talking about here? This is so dumb. And so I think like.
But also you have in your head as well, you're like, I'm an artist, but I'm also a business person. And like, I want to make a living with my art.
Yes.
So you had that part of your brain always because that's who you are.
For
so
sure.
It's like, what are you talking? I don't want to make like shadows against a wall and.
Absolutely. And I think when you're younger, like you don't have the confidence yet, the experience behind you to hold on to your own experience and call someone out because you don't know yet.
I would have been a total fucking sheep in this situation.
Yes.
Like knowing me and knowing how I like need to get the A and the whatever, I would have been the biggest fucking sheep.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very hard not to because it's presented to you in a way that's like, this is what this education is about. I don't want to go here because I'm sure you and I could talk about this forever, but that is to me the fear and the damage of what's happened on campuses like Columbia and NYU post October 7th. It's presented to these students as higher education, as open-mindedness, as the new world, how to think about things. And so they co-signed a belief and started behaving in a way they never would have behaved. They said things they never would have said, did things they never would have done.
Outside of that environment.
Because they were in this like, there's no right or wrong. Like, ooh, like it was presented to them as higher education.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have to check their own morality in the moment because it was part of the learning experience. So like, tangent, but like I do think at that age you don't know enough yet, and so you can fall prey to that. You don't have your own experience to be like, what are you talking about? Like, okay, you like that, I like this. And so I think school was over. I loved it. It was interesting. I had met Mike, my now husband, while I was there because I got a job working at a bar in order to pay my bills. Everybody else at the school, most were international students with a lot of money and no one had jobs. Yeah. So I was like the only one that was working and I had to pay rent and we had to buy film. Like we filmed on film. We had to buy film for our projects. And I met Mike at that time and we started dating. And
so wait, was he a customer at the bar?
No, so Mike worked on Wall Street.
Okay. He gives Wall Street. I mean, I obviously did a little. He's like a very clean-shaven, tidy-looking man.
He gives both. He's now a cop.
Oh my God.
He gives both, doesn't he? Like you can,
I could see
you
that
can
now.
literally see both. You're like, I can see how that happened and I can see how this is now happening.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he is from New York. He was born in Queens, then moved to Long Island, then lived in the city. He, went to school, got his MBA, got a job on Wall Street, worked there for years. And then like the industry started changing. Sort of post 9/11, a lot changed, a lot of jobs went away, a lot of weird stuff happened. And he found himself out of a job and was running this bar, McFadden's, for a friend of his.
McFadden's?
That's where we met.
Oh my God.
Yes.
For anybody listening in New York or
42nd and Second.
Yeah, it is like the quintessential, I just got off at Grand Central and I'm meeting my friends, or like it is such a meeting place.
Yes. Irish bar, absolute blast.
Classic.
Yes, it is. It was an amazing place. And he was running McFadden's for his buddy while he was figuring out what was going to happen next. And so he was, managing, and I got a job off Craigslist. I mean, I think about it now and I'm like, I'll smack my daughter if she does what I did.
You're the second person on the pod who's gotten a job off of Craigslist. Yeah. And, I jokingly was like, Craigslist, the recruiter of choice. But back in the day, it was different.
It was different.
It was different.
And so I was looking for a job and I saw a posting for a freaking Jello shot waitress, and it was late. It was 10 to 2 or 10 to 4 a.m. and I was in school all day, so that worked for me. So I would go down to this creepy dude's apartment in the East Village, and he would give me a suitcase filled with Tupperwares of Jello shots and whipped cream, and I would take it on the train, and he would tell me which bar I was at, and I was placed at McFadden's, and I would go to McFadden's, and I would sell Jello shots. They were $3 a shot, $2 went to the guys, $1 went to the house, and I made tips only. And the first day they gave me like 150 shots or whatever. And it was like an hour and I had sold them all. And I called the guy and I'm like, what do we do? Like, does like a person come with like another suitcase? Like, this is my first day. I'm like, I don't know how this works. And he's like, we've never had anyone sell the shots all night. You sold all the shots? Well, you're done for the night. Next time we'll give you more. So the next time I go, instead of like 150 shots, he gives me like 350 or 400 shots. And he goes, listen, no one ever sells this many. The guys don't know. Just that extra buck a shot that you normally give them, just keep it. And just give them the 150 like you normally give them. It's fine. And I was like, okay, that sounds great to me. So I do it. I do it for probably a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And then Mike starts working. And now he was not a cop at the time.
Yeah.
but it is very much aligned with him. He's like, there is a right and there is a wrong. There is black and there is white. Like, I am all gray. I am like, I can see where everyone's coming from. Like, I'm all like, you know.
And the peacekeeper.
And he's like, absolutely not. So he's like, hey, you know, Mike Murphy shakes my hand. He goes, all right, let me count your shots. And I'm like, they don't count my shots. He goes, well, I got to count my shots. How else do I know how
much
what you owe me?
Yeah.
Well, like, duh, right? He's a smart man. And I just fast talk as fast as I can, trying to not get caught that I've been stealing. And I'm like, well, I don't know. They never count the shots. They just give me a suitcase and there's shots in there. And then I just like, I don't know. And I was just like fully caught stealing. So he's like, he comes up to me, he goes, there's 400 shots here. And I was like, are there 400?
You're like, I thought it was 150.
It's usually
I don't know how to count.
Oh my God. You should call Brian. I'm just the girl in a skirt. And so he like looks at me and I was just like, we like stared and he's like, all right, just go, get out there.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. And
so funny.
He literally caught me stealing. And I did that job for probably like, it was maybe 2 months. And it got really bad. It just got really hard. Like, people would be really wasted. The place was really packed. You had no like physical protection at all. No. You were dressed really skankily. You've got whipped cream in your hand and you're walking around and
people
it's
are
cash
taking
and it's
liberties.
tips.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was a moment where, something happened physically and I was outside and I was crying and he came out to check on me and basically was like, you need to stop doing this job. I will give you a job as a waitress. Like, you will have more protection. You will have the rest of the staff. You won't be walking through people. Like, you can work different hours. I'll work around your school schedule. And so I quit the Jello shots and he gave me a job as a waitress there. And it was incredible. Like, it ended up being a huge game changer. I felt like I became part of that family. All of the girls that worked there, we became friends. It was like a new community for me. And I'd always worked in restaurants. And so what was wild is when that year was done and I was supposed to go home, I had come home with $19,000 in the bank, saving money, living in New York City by myself.
Crazy. Going
to school, rent for the first time in my whole life, groceries for the first time in my whole life. Like, I still had a lot of things. My parents took care of my health insurance, my phone. Like, I was still being taken care of by my parents in a way, but like rent, groceries,
you
life.
You could have covered those things yourself.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Like, I came home with savings because I had made so much money at this place. I mean, it was a game changer for me.
Shout out McFadden.
I know. It was really amazing.
And shout out Mike Murphy.
Yeah.
This is so sweet. Okay. So you guys are dating at some point, you start dating. And at what point were you like, this is my forever relationship?
Not at that point at all. I mean, I was 19.
Yeah.
He's 13 years older than me. So like we were just like having fun and I just found him wonderful. He's such a good man. I don't know why it's making me cry. He has such a strong moral compass. Like, he's just such a good man. And I think I just found myself inexplicably attracted to him. And I don't know. I decided to stay in New York a little bit longer. My school was over and I decided to stay a little longer. So I stayed a little longer because of him, really. And when it was time for me to move home, we ended up in this sort of accidental long distance relationship. Like, I didn't really want that. Yeah. I didn't want that at all. And so I broke up with him many times because I'm like, this is stupid. Like, you live there, I live here, you're not moving, I'm not moving. You're Irish Catholic, I'm Jewish, LA, you like, we're like, there's like, none of this makes any sense. None of this computes. But like, every time I broke up with him and would try to like see other people do other things, I just always found myself shooting him a text and starting to talk again. And next thing I knew, he was flying out. Next thing I was flying out. And I just couldn't get away from him. Like, there was just something about him.
The first two stories that you told about him that clearly left an impression on you were, one, honesty and integrity was the first story you told about your now husband. And two, it was about keeping you safe and making sure that you were okay. I mean, those are like the two core memories that you shared from just meeting him. It's like when somebody shows you who they are, you got to listen.
Yeah. No, I mean, truly, and he was always like that. Like, he's a very confident person. He's very physically very strong. Like, we would walk down the street and like the dance he would do to switch sides based off what he assessed. Like, it was nothing I'd ever seen. I grew up with a bunch of like, again, my perception was like these were weak entitled rich boys.
Yeah,
there was no street smarts in them. There was no toughness in them. They were sweet boys.
Yeah.
But they like, we used to get in fights with these kids at El Camino, which is a school that was 15 minutes away, that was not part of our school district, and they were tough as shit. And like, you go to a party with El Camino kids, you better get your Calabasas boys home because they cannot protect themselves for anything. Like, they were sweet, but they were not tough. That was like the perception, at least that I had.
Yeah.
That like Mike was so different. He was like a man, and he was confident. And if he needed to fight, he fought. And like, if he needed to protect, he did. And he was just... So I think there was just something about him that I just really gravitated towards. And so I ended up getting an internship at SNL, which I ended up not taking, but I got this internship.
Wait, pause. We can't. It's like a pretty big fucking internship to get.
Yeah, well, so
they're like a little competitive. They may have made a whole TV show called 30 Rock about what it's like to be in that environment.
Yes. Okay. So it's not as impressive as it sounds. So I when I got back from New York, I started being a PA on sets because I'd gone to school for directing, and so what was the next thing? It was start getting on sets and start working and work on my own projects and all that stuff. So I started getting a job as a PA, and I worked on a film as an intern that was doing this movie called The Grand. That was a like poker mockumentary movie. And the internship went well, so they hired me as a PA for the film. So we went out to Vegas for a month while we filmed this movie. And Chris Parnell was one of the actors. And we were very close with all of the actors because it was a low budget movie.
Sure.
And Cheryl Hines and Chris Parnell. And we would they would get together and they would do poker games, and we would be there, and we were getting their coffee, but we were also talking to them. And Chris became like kind of a friend at the time. And so I reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, absolutely. Let me reach out and get you this thing. And so basically he told me, he's like, listen, the internship is not what you think it's going to be. You're literally going to be someone's bitch. You're going to get coffee, and that's it. It's not going to be fun.
Less than a year ago, I had to have major surgery to address my Crohn's disease. Since surgery, I have overhauled how I live and how I eat. I focus mainly on protein, eating whole foods, and mainly the Mediterranean diet. I lift weights several times a week, and I'm trying to manage my stress. But part of the success of this overhaul has been that I still allow myself to eat delicious things that aren't strictly on the plan. It feels more sustainable that way. As a consequence, I've become very picky about the type of sweet treats I indulge in. I want them to be delicious, made with high-quality ingredients, and finite. If it's more than 3 bites, it's not really serving me anymore. Enter Rose Macaroons. This Mutha-founded business is truly the ideal 3-bite treat for me to enjoy some sweetness and feel fully satisfied after eating just one. If you're a fan of coconut, this deeply satisfying treat is just for you. Head to rosemax.com for 20% off with code MUTHA20. I'll put this in the show notes along with founder Audrey Rose's wonderful Mother Life episode. Regular listeners to the pod will know I love to talk about the real stuff. And for many listeners, that real stuff is our aging bodies, our postpartum bodies. I've always marveled at my friends who just go commando in their leggings without a care in the world. I have a lot of questions for them, mainly around laundry. My body just isn't built like that, and turns out most women's bodies aren't. Between unpredictable discharge, I love to talk about discharge, and the risk of UTIs, there's a lot telling us that underwear is actually extremely useful. While underwear might be helpful, it's not always the vibe. Skimpies was invented by a fellow mother who wanted to live life in her leggings without panty lines, without UTIs. Skimpies is a liner for your leggings that won't budge when you're working out, running to catch a bus, or just doing the unending amount of squats we all do all day long, picking stuff up from the floor. Head to skimpies.com to learn more and snag yourself a monthly subscription. If part of the motherhood journey is about reclaiming some confidence, some sexy in your body, let Skimpies help. Head to the show notes for more info, including a link to the founder of Skimpies, Bette Bentley's Mother Life episode. Use the discount code MUTHA20 to get 20% off your purchase. You know what one of my husband's biggest complaints is? He hates how I organize, or don't organize, the kid shit, especially the diaper bag. He claims that if he knew where to easily find stuff, he'd use it more and, by proxy, take the kids out more on his own. Well, game on, sir. Get your own bag. The Gojo Backpack by Silverback Supply Company is the move. Designed by a dad who was also sick of his wife's diaper bag shenanigans, it's the perfect bag for living life with a baby. It's got a padded sleeve for your laptop or tablet, bungees to secure that blankie or stuffy, a built-in changing pad, and more. I know the tradition is that you buy a cutesy diaper bag for new moms at the baby shower. But what if we flipped the script, started buying gear for the dads, set the tone that they're equals in this thing right from the get-go? If you've got a dad to young kids, a dad that's expecting, or really any parent that's into minimalist, modern design and needs to lug some kid shit around, hit them with something different. Go to silverbacksupplyco.com and use discount code MUTHA, MUTHA, for 20% off and free shipping and handling. I'll put a link in the show notes.
It's not gonna be creative. It's not gonna be the thing you think this is gonna be, but like if you want it, I'll get it for you. And I really wanted it in large part because the opportunity sounded cool, but I also had been long distance with Mike for a while and was like, we're constantly on vacation. We need to know if like we really work every day, where like when it's rainy and it's not fun and you have to work and I have to work and like we're not taking a week off and just like in la la
Trash
land.
has to be taken out. It's
Life, right?
Dishes.
So that was a big part of it. So I got the internship, and then I think by the time I was like ready to move to New York, I had sort of decided based off of the feedback that like it maybe was not actually a really like the opportunity was not really that great, but I was just going to move to New York anyway.
Yeah.
And so I ended up moving back to New York and had planned on getting a place. Crashed with Mike while I looked for a place and like just never left. We ended up getting an apartment together and have lived together ever since.
And how long have you guys been together?
So I'm 40 now. I met him when I was 19.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So at what point did you guys think like one day we want to have a family? Did you have like active conversations about wanting to have kids?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
So I didn't think I ever wanted kids. And I think I didn't think I ever wanted to get married. And when Mike and I were together for as long as we were, there was a moment where I was like, well, he's like my person. I'm not looking for anyone else. So like, why wouldn't I get married? Yeah. It wasn't something I felt like I needed, but
I was the exact same way.
Yeah. And for Mike, it was important.
Yeah.
And I was like,
exactly.
It honestly, why wouldn't I? You know? And so he proposed and we got married. I think we got married right. I turned 26, like a month later.
Okay.
I had turned, my birthday was in August. I turned 26. The wedding was in September. So a few weeks later. And then I told him that I didn't want to have a conversation about having kids until I was like at least 28, that I knew that I wasn't ready, that was whatever, you know. And so we didn't talk about it and we waited. And then right around then when I was 28, I started being like open to it. And I was someone who I used to like not get periods for like 6 months. I was like all over the place. They said I had polycystic ovaries. They said this, and I didn't feel like a girly girl. Yeah. I associated that for whatever reason with like maternal nature. And I just didn't think that I would get pregnant.
Yeah.
And we got pregnant the first time we had unprotected sex. And I like had a fucking meltdown.
I bet.
I had a meltdown. Like that was way too fast. I thought that there was going to be like, I said yes because I thought it was going to take forever.
Right.
And it did not. And so I really, really panicked. I mean, I like prayed for a miscarriage. I like Googled things about how to induce. I was doing pressure points. I was like panicked. I'm like, this is no, ma'am. I am not ready for this. Yeah. And I don't know whether it's the like resilience of the human spirit, whether it's hormones. I don't know what it is, but it felt like a light switch went on or a page turned to a new chapter. It was a virtual overnight shift of dread and terror to excitement and optimism. Wow. And I don't know why or how it happened. I'm like, it's got to be hormones. The body just has to do that for you.
Yeah.
Or no one would do this. Yeah. Like that's got to be what it is, you know?
Yeah.
And then I got so excited and I never looked back. And it was incredible. My pregnancy was incredible. Like motherhood has been incredible. Like it was wonderful. But that initial moment of dread was just terrifying.
Yeah. I always say like, and I think it happens for different people at different times based on your personal history, your history with, getting pregnant, whatever. But it's like we get basically 10 months to wrap our heads around this thing. And then even when they show up, it's like totally not anything you can actually imagine. Even if you like have been in childcare your whole life or whatever, like you just, until it's here, you can't really fully anticipate it. Had you guys talked about, or had you thought about even for yourself, like what kind of parent I want to be?
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a moment that Mike said something that really shifted for me because I was nervous before we even started I can't even say trying because we didn't try. Before we even started being open to getting pregnant, I had just expressed that like I would see women walk down the street in New York. We were living in New York. I would see people walk down the street with like strollers and bags and screaming kids and grabbing them. And I'm like, that looks like hell. Like, I don't want to be that person who's frazzled and all over the place and like being yanked in all directions. And like, that doesn't look fun. And I don't want to be that kind of a person. And I remember Mike being like, there are no rules. Like, we get to be whatever kind of parents we want to be. Like, you don't want to be like that, don't be like that. You don't have to be like that. You get to be whatever. What do you want to be like? We'll be whatever we want to be. And it was a real pivotal moment where I was like, oh, I get to be Orly still. Like, I don't have to be like...
Orly makes her own lane.
Yeah. Like, I don't have to be like anything that came before me. I get to be whatever I want to be. It gets to look however we want it to look. If we want to be the kind of parents that like pick up our life and travel in an RV and like go to music festivals with our kids in tow, we can do that. Like, that sounds like hell. I would never want to do that. But like, we could do that. You know, like that could be a thing we choose to do. So I think when I realized that, I realized I'm going to be Orly throughout it, who now has kids.
Yeah.
I am not a mommy. I'm not becoming a mommy. Like, I'm not losing my identity. I am Orly with kids. And that was the guiding light. That made every decision simple. That made because I'm like, if it doesn't sound good, it doesn't sound good. I don't need to change that because, you know, like together we're really on the same page of like the big principles of parenting and what kind of children and humans we're trying to raise and how we want them to behave in the world. That we've always been same page.
How you implement that, is that similar? Do you have similar visions?
Yeah, we do. I mean, there are moments now as they're getting older where we see it differently. Mike is definitely, he has much more of an emphasis on academics than I do. And so like he comes down on them really hard with that stuff where like, I'm just like, you know, it's all right. He got a bad grade on a test. Like, we're really going to do this? Like, do we have to do this? He knows he did it. Like, it's fine. Like, he's still a straight A's. Like, why are we freaking out? But for him, that's very serious. Them going to college is very important to him. I don't agree. You know, there are moments, there are things, you know, I grew up having sleepovers. That was like my favorite memory, especially for girls. That's so huge developmentally. That's so fun. He's really anti-sleepover. We've had to like ease that in, have fights about that. Like, so there are things as they get older that we're sometimes not quite on the same page about. But like the bigger things, we've always been lockstep about what the right way is to handle it, what's acceptable, what's not, what's okay, what's not. Like, that's always been really easy, just like same page.
And in terms of like division of responsibility, so he's a police officer. Mm-hmm. So what sort of hours is he working?
It varies based off what his like quote unquote deployment is. Yeah. So when he was first working, and there were times he was working nights and that was really brutal. There was times he was working in the jail and that was really brutal. He now has more of like an office job. He works in like recruiting. So he's now part of the team that's responsible for hiring and, you know, assessing and interviewing and making sure people pass all the different, you know, things they have to pass in order to get to that level. So it's a little bit more mellow now, but he works in Orange County. So it's a commute.
Woof.
Yeah. So he leaves the house every morning at like 4:30 a.m. and he's normally home by like 7:30 or 8, but he's coming home off of a 2-hour commute. So it's like, he's not like, hey, like he's beat. Yeah, it's hard, you know, it's hard. So right now he has weekends off. That's really great.
Nice, yeah.
And so it's okay. I mean, during the weekdays, I just consider myself like a single mom. Like, it's on me. I don't plan for him to be around at all. And then if he is, cool. But it's easier for me if I just plan that it's all on me.
Yeah.
Than being frustrated and like disappointed. So, you know, the schedule...
You're running mornings and you're running dinner, bedtime, post school,
all the things,
etc.
Yeah.
That's a lot. First of all, needs to be said. And when they were little, like diaper age and stuff like that, was there? Sometimes I feel like there's this moment when there's babies and you're like, fuck, like they just need me for certain things, whether you're breastfeeding or whatever, where it's just like, oh my God, this is not. As the feminist I am in my head, this is not what I thought the division of labor was going to look like.
Yeah.
Did you have any of those moments, or were you guys just like able to sort of navigate, figure it out, communicate your way through it?
I never had any frustrations with stuff like that. The only frustrations I started having was around work. It was frustrating to me, and it continues to be frustrating to me that like it's a given that the kids are taken care of when he works. It's not a given that they are when I work. I have to get it taken care of. If he randomly has to work overtime on a Monday, he just has to tell me.
Yeah.
And then I take over.
Yeah.
That I'm resentful of. That I
Yes.
get frustrated about. That I get pissed off about. I get annoyed that if the school calls, it's me that has to leave. It's those things. That's the only time that I start to feel like, what in the fuck?
But so well identified, and I'm noticing a little bit of a theme. We actually, an episode that aired this week, for those of you at home, that would be episode 25, with Zach Brooks, who is in a similar situation. He's the creative in his family, and so is more flexible. And this is going to come up. This has come up in other episodes, ones that are coming out soon as well, where it's like, if you have a more flexible schedule, you're the more creative person in your dynamic. If you're the entrepreneur or whatever, there's just things that default to you. And that can be really frustrating. And it's disruptive also, because when you're doing creative things, you need to be able to have the mental space to create.
Yes.
And so knowing like, okay, I have 3 hours before I have to do X, Y, the doctor's appointment, picking the kid up early from school, whatever it is, it's kind of hard to be like, cool, I'm going to be creative right now for 3 hours. No, it doesn't really work like that.
It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. And it's hard to explain a creative career to someone not creative. Mike is incredibly supportive and always like the biggest cheerleader and like, I can't believe you did that. And holy cow, that's incredible. Like, how is that possible? Like, but he doesn't get it as far as like what it takes to do it. So that's hard, because sometimes you just need downtime so that your brain can empty so that it has space for new ideas, and that looks like you don't work.
Yes.
And like and so that's hard sometimes, like that navigating that creative. Yeah, that's hard.
My husband and I are both sort of in that space. So I think we get each other. He's much more, I mean, he's a writer. He's even more so in that space. I'm a little bit more in the middle. But it's really hard sometimes for us to explain to our friends who have more traditional jobs. And it looks like we're just like, like I'm at the gym at 11 a.m. or whatever. And it can be, I think, really confusing for people. And also, I mean, I get a strong sense that you give very few fucks. But like for me, I have to like just remind myself, like, you know what you're doing. Yeah. If your friends don't get it, that's fine. It doesn't mean you're not working hard to pursue your goals and your dreams.
Right.
It just doesn't, they don't get it. Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they don't support you. It just means they don't understand this piece of you.
Exactly. I think that's sometimes where it gets hard, is we all know those people that are full of it. And that's what we don't want people to think we are.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's the thing.
Yes.
Is we know those people who claim they're working, like, I got this work and I got this work and I got this. And like, you know them and you know they don't, because they never have, because you've known them since they were 12 and they've always had this working and that working, and they've never had anything working. And so like, we know that, and we're like, God, please don't think I'm them. Like, I think like that's where I do give an F, is where I'm like, I don't want to be perceived as someone who's talking a big game and not producing. Well, the results are important to
me.
We
have to talk about that, because so obviously you are a multi-hyphenate. You're doing a lot of things. Mm-hmm. You have, amazing, the DIY piece is like a huge part of your identity. And I encourage you guys to go on Orly's Instagram. I'm going to leave everything in the show notes for people to find you. But Rock Knot.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something, like, I was just looking, and there's so many cute things, and it's just like sold out. It's
nuts. It's nuts.
So there are results.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And like, this is not the first business I tried to start, and this one started on accident. Like, I had a clothing line, like I said, when I was in high school. I tried to keep it going when I was in New York. I was on a TV show called Fashion Star, which was a design competition show on NBC. And coming out of that, I started a collection called Tuck and West. That didn't work. Like, and I think at a certain point when I was doing the DIY stuff, I had just sort of resigned myself to the fact that, like, I'm not a designer. I'm a really good teacher. And I'm really good at teaching people how to customize it for themselves, and the techniques and shortcuts. And because I never went to school, I think outside of the box when it comes to fashion and designing and construction. I don't know the right way. So I just think, well, would this work? And then it does work. And then it's like, well, shit, why go through 74 steps? This one thing just worked. Do it this way, guys.
Yeah.
Like, that was why I think I was really good at that. And so for the longest time, I was like, I'm not doing that again. I've tried and failed enough times to know that that's not where my skill set lies. And I think that was because I was trying to be a clothing designer, and I am not a clothing designer. I think, to me, the individuality that I am passionate about people experiencing in their clothing prevents me from designing clothes, because I want it to be everything that each person wants. I'm like, well, if you have a large bust, then you don't want a high neck, and then you want this. But then if you don't, then you want this. And if that's not going to look. And like, I could never commit to anything. I had no vision because I wanted it to be everything to everyone. And that made for a lackluster, visionless brand. Whereas Rocknot, which is a women's accessories brand, it naturally lends itself because I wear it
stop
differently
looking
than you.
at yours because it's so fucking good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
but sorry.
like the way that I wear it is different than the way you wear it naturally.
Yeah.
Because it's an accessory. And so you have a full outfit and hair and makeup that are communicating a totally different story than mine. So it naturally does that. So I think that's a really big part of it. And I think that because it is so narrowly focused, it is rhinestone cording. It has put me between a rock and a hard place, and it has made my creativity explode because I have rules. I can't just do whatever I want. It has to sparkle. It has to be rugged. It has to be versatile. It has to last. That's a lot of requirements. And so it forces me to carve this very clear path because I have rules. And I think that that's really good for my creativity. If you gave me an empty room, a blank white room, and said, go to town, I would leave. Yeah. You're the meanest person ever. That's not fun. But if you gave me that tiny space right when you walk in and you said, this needs to be my dining room, my office, a kid's zone, my creativity would go nuts.
Right.
Because now I have problems I have to solve.
Yeah.
And that's fun for me. And so I think Rocknot just was meant to be. It worked in a way that nothing else worked. It lent itself to my creativity and my personality and my desires really, really well. And so it's just exploded. And I mean, I've never had anything do what this is doing. Like, I can't believe it. Like, I still can't believe it.
Guys, her face is so funny. She's like truly dumbstruck by her own success, which obviously I appreciate that you said you've tried other things and it didn't work, because I think often with entrepreneurs, people see the one thing that did work and they think, I need to come up with that one good idea. And it's like, no, you have to come up with a bunch of shitty ideas first. And,
you do.
And fail at those.
You do. And you know, and sometimes people get lucky and the first idea works, but oftentimes there's a failure in there. Like, because they didn't have enough experience, the big idea got big and then something like things happen. Things have to happen. Yeah. They just do. And so, yeah, I had absolutely tried other things and just flat out failed at them, you know? And so this, I did not want to do it. I had done it as a DIY video teaching people how to make their own detachable purse strap that could go on any handbag and convert any bag into a statement piece. And that was the concept. And I put up the video and people were asking me to make it. People were stopping me everywhere I went and were asking me to make it. And I was like, I don't make it, but here's my video. And I was like, you know, airdropping them the YouTube video. And I was like, just make it, just make it. And I had a girlfriend, actually one of my sister's really good friends, who was like, listen, I'm not going to DIY it. Okay? Yeah. I'm just like, who has the time? Yeah. I'm not going to do it. And she's very successful. She's like, I just don't have the time. I want to buy it. Just what would it cost? What would it cost to make me one? And so I'm like, well, I don't know. $400 a strap. Because I was like, I don't want to do it. Yeah. And she goes, cool, I'll take 10. I have a Christmas dinner and I want to give them as gifts. And I was like, what? She's like, I'll take 10. Just let me know when you can have them to me. And at that moment, I was like, okay, hold on. Like,
you're like, Orly.
There's something here. There's something here. This woman can afford anything. She can go to Chanel and buy all of them a handbag if she wants to. She wants this. She wants this from me. There's something here. And that money became really the funding. Like, that allowed me to look into finding the material, because I was buying the material in downtown LA, but it was coming from overseas.
Guys, they don't cost $400, just so you know.
Yeah, they don't cost $400.
We're not pricing you out.
No. But so it allowed me, that amount of money allowed me to say, maybe I'll start buying the material where it's coming from anyway and save, instead of paying for it here in LA, I'll buy it there. And I went and started looking and found a really great manufacturer who not only was able to get me the material, but was able to manufacture it. So I started like sending videos of myself making it and sending them samples, and they would send it back. And I'm like, that's too tight. Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like Rocknot has been able to, the quality has been able to improve so much, because with every round of production, there's a tweak. that comes from customer feedback.
Now, you and Mike have very different jobs, very different demeanors and approaches to things, and you also have 2 kids. What are their ages?
Connor's 11 and Blake is 9.
Okay, both boys.
No, my daughter is Blake.
Blake, sorry. Okay, so you have these 2 kids. Is it the sort of thing where they're at an age where they are absolutely their own people?
Yes.
Can you see either of you in them? Are they totally different in different combinations?
Blake is me, like just is so me in so many ways. She's really funny. She's likes being the center of attention. She's really silly. She likes to stand out. She likes to be her own person. She's really emotional. She feels people's feelings. Like she and I are just very, very similar. Connor is a lot like Mike. He's a lot like what I think Mike probably was as a little boy before he sort of put on a like boys don't cry shell.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Connor's very emotional, but he wants to do the right thing always. He is what I would say like birth order stuff. Like he registers to me in what I hear the eldest is like.
Yeah.
He like does the right thing, follows the rules. If he didn't get permission, he doesn't do it. And Blake's like, hiding candy under her bed, and Connor's like, can I have cereal for breakfast? Like they just, in that way, they're very different. But they're both really, really empathetic, which I love. They care and feel so much, which is really like my favorite thing about them.
That's the best. I mean, I feel like this generation of parents, we just want to raise kind, good kids.
Yeah.
And they'll figure out the rest, right?
Yeah.
So to see that in your kids, especially as they are starting to really be in their feelings, has to be a nice, rewarding thing.
It really is.
In terms of now that you are in this next chapter and like next comes middle school and that comes like nasty kid shit and whatever, do you feel like you're prepared for what comes next?
I'm prepared. I think that's where Mike and I do really good division of labor. Like I said, Mike doesn't shy away from a fight. So he has instilled that in both the kids. Like, you don't let anyone push you around. And like, there's a toughness that he instills in them that I'm grateful for because I wouldn't know how to lead that conversation. I can have the conversation with both of them, but specifically with Blake around girls. I had a hard time. I felt like I was targeted by girls, groups of girls. That was hard for me. I always had really good friends. But I'd never felt safe in a group. And I always felt like I was the target of the group. And so I can be there to kind of guide her through what that looks like and why people do that and how, like whatever. So I think I'm there for her in that way that she'll probably need help with. But it's different. It can be different for boys.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful that Mike.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Me neither.
And I think about that already with my son that's 4. It's just like there's stuff already that he's feeling that I'm like, I don't understand rage. Like I don't get that.
Yeah.
Like you got to deal with that because I don't know how to talk to him about this. And my husband already is like, I do kind of understand where this is coming from. And I'm like, great. Have at it.
That's a you problem.
That's going to be a you problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys live in a house where your kids see you argue about stuff?
Mike and I don't fight very often.
Ew.
I know.
Gross.
But it's like we're both pretty easygoing. So like it's just kind of like there's not much.
Yeah.
Like and when there is, but we don't usually it's not like things come up enough that we can't have like a thoughtful conversation around it in private.
Yeah.
But like there are moments where like something comes up and we're like a little like tit for tat with each other.
Yeah.
And like arguing about something and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Like we get over it. We talk about it. We whatever. And we do that as much as we can in front of them. But it's so rare that it's like not like most of the time, like if something's going on, like we talk.
And with his schedule, do you guys get alone time?
Not as much as we need.
Yeah. Eventually you'll get there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I saw a funny meme that was like, adulthood is just saying things should slow down next week forever until you die. And I was like, that feels right. Because like I keep thinking like, well, it's just like a really crazy time right now and things will settle. But like, I think we just say that forever.
Yeah.
And it is always a crazy time. Things that were crazy and settle down. There's something new that gets introduced that takes its place. Like whatever. It's just always kind of crazy. So we try to like set up a time, let's go out, let's do this. But the problem too, and it's not a problem, it's great. They're older now. They could go everywhere with us and
They're like, you guys are going to dinner? We want to come to dinner.
they're fun at a restaurant now.
Yeah.
So like it used to be like if we want to go out to a restaurant, we need a sitter because like we can't have them sit there and like scream and be nuts and whatever. Now it's like they're like little grown-ups. They sit, they want to order like good food, they are having good conversation. Like it's fun, the four of us to go out. So we haven't done enough date nights because as a family we do a date more often.
That's cute.
That like we feel bad being like, we're going out, bye. Because they're like, yo, what the?
We like sushi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're used to it now that it's like, they like look at us like, excuse me?
That's very
but we
cute.
do need that, we need it. You need that reset.
Yeah, everybody needs it. Hard to come by, but we all need it.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, a lot of the work that you do, not obviously, but a lot of the work that you do is also like from home.
Yeah.
Various pieces of it. And they see you doing your work.
Yeah.
Do you see in them like, I don't know, that would make me feel really proud. Like even when my son comes in here and sometimes he'll have like a pretend podcast interview with me, it makes me feel proud that he gets to see me doing my work.
Sure.
Do you sort of like bring them into the fold when you can?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love it. I mean, I loved that my mom worked. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that she worked, which is why like I don't really suffer from mom guilt around work at all. And that's just because like my example was my mom and I thought it was the coolest thing. And so like, I think that that's a lot of that comes from our own example. I have a girlfriend of mine, Maria. She's amazing and she works and she has a million things going on and her mom stayed at home. And so she has a lot of guilt around it because like that's not the example that was set for her. And so I do think a lot of that.
Shout out Maria.
Oh, she's the best. You should have her on, Maria Provenzano. She's incredible. So I think a lot of that, like our story and our guilt comes from an expectation, right? Like we had an expectation that we would do something, we didn't do it the way we thought, we feel guilty about it, especially if we made a different choice and we're like, oh my God, I'm feeling guilty around that whole thing. I don't feel that way because my mom always worked. I thought it was super cool. I thought it was super cool that my parents had a life, that we were not their life. They couldn't come to Bakersfield for freaking soccer tournament because they had like shit to do on the weekend. They were like, I'm not going, like get a ride.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Bakersfield for you to play 4 soccer games. Like, no thanks. I loved that. I thought that was so cool. I didn't want them there.
Yeah.
That was my world. That was what I did. That was not about them. Like to me, I liked it. So I have no guilt around that. I do go to my kids' games because my husband is not like that. And he does make me feel guilty if I miss my kids' games. He's like, you're not coming to Connor's game? And I'm like, well, I thought I would go to where. He's like, all right, well, if that's what you want to do. I'm like, oh my God, you bastard.
Fine, I'll fucking go.
Fine, I guess I'll be there. So I go to all their games, but the work part I don't feel guilty about, and I do loop them in. Like Blake and Connor will come with me to the warehouse when their school is off. Like next Monday, school is off. They'll come with me. They'll go to the warehouse with me. They'll help. They'll unpack stuff. They'll organize stuff. Like they love it, and I think they're proud of it. Like when they have kids come over, like the Rock Nut used to be in our little converted garage. Everything was in there until we moved to the warehouse. And whenever Blake has friends over, like that's the first place they go.
I bet.
Is in there.
Got to be like just fun land for a bunch of little girls to play with accessories.
Yeah. And so I love that because I can see like the pride because it's not like she's like hiding it. She's like, that's where they should go first. So it's a very, they think it's all really cool. And, yeah, they seem to love it.
That's cute. Okay, so there's one last piece that I want to cover because you have a project that you're working on now, which is a different facet of your work, which is this, is it called Orly and Bet?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, Bet we've had her on the show and I can put that episode in the show notes as well so if people can listen. But you guys are absolute fucking characters. So this show, what was the genesis for it and like what should people expect?
So it's basically going to be a talk show. It's going to be like part talk, part reality, essentially. And so it's going to be lifestyle. We're going to talk about beauty and wellness and food and humor and hacks and style and all the things. Guests coming on, interviewing them, talking about their life, getting in the kitchen, cooking something, sharing our favorite products. What did you buy this week? Like really just open, easy, fun, joyful conversation. But we wanted it to be visual. We wanted it to feel like a talk show and it's launching on YouTube, but we have a goal to move it and to have it land somewhere and have a studio and all of that stuff. And it's a show that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And I went to a birthday party for a mom at school and I had never met Bet. And Bet is her son her daughter will go to our school as well, but for right now it's just her son while her daughter waits for a spot. And so she was there. And so our kids aren't in the same class, and I had never met her. And I saw her and I'm like, who is that?
She's very striking.
She's very striking. Tall, redhead, beautiful, charismatic, charming. Like, she's just captivating. And I saw her from like across the room, and we started talking, and she's an entrepreneur. And as you know, since you heard her podcast, she has an awesome brand called Skimpy's. And we started talking, and she just was different. She was just different. She felt important and special. And like, there was just something about her. I felt like, I don't know, just really drawn to her. And so we were talking, we spent pretty much the whole night talking. And then she placed an order on Rocknot for a bunch of stuff. And so I was like, you know what, I'll deliver it. Like, I'm going to be at the warehouse today. I'll just pack it up and I'll refund your shipping, and I'll just come and bring it to your house. So I went to her house, and we're standing in the hallway talking, and I'm giving her a package. And we ended up standing in the hallway for like an hour and a half. We sat there for an hour talking, and I basically started sharing with her a few of these different ideas I had. And I eventually said, you know, I know this is random and very different, but like, I've been dying to do this talk show. Like, what if we did this talk show? Like, what if we did this instead?
Yeah.
And she was into the idea, and I have this amazing executive producer named Glenn Milley, who was a producer on a show that I worked on forever. He was a producer on Red Table Talk, like Emmy Award winning, super smart, super creative, just a joy. And I called him and I was like, I'm kind of thinking about doing this project. Would you be interested in coming on board? And I was like, you know, I'm doing it with this girl, Bet. And he was like hesitant because he's like, who is this? Like, who?
Yeah.
Like, what? And I'm like, just trust me. Like, I think when you meet her, you're going to get it. Like, I can't really explain it, but I think you're going to get it. And so we had this meeting, and we just started talking, and she left, and he was like, yeah.
Done.
Yes. I don't know what it is, but she's magic. Yes. And so we just started working on this project, and we've been developing it over the goal was originally to shoot it in December, and Rocknot was just outrageous. Like, I was head underwater. So we've just been filming it now. Our goal is we're filming our 8 episodes season 1. We'll start releasing them in April. But I think what's fun about it is it's a very, like, if you have an idea, it sometimes is as simple as like gathering the interesting people in your world together and being like, do you guys want to try to do this thing?
Yeah.
We're creating it. We're deciding to do it. And we're texting friends that are interesting people, that are chefs, that are celebrities, that are stars, that are writers. And we're like, will you come on for an hour and do this show with us? Like, we can do this, we can do that. So it has been an absolute joy. It's really fun. We're building it as we go. We're creating it as we go.
Love it.
But the goal is just that it's just an hour of really joyful, creative, fun, inspirational content. By the time you're done, you got like a little takeaway, you found a cool product, you were introduced to a new person, and it's just like you feel like a little more joyful when it's all over.
I love it. Well, this episode will probably come out before your show comes out, but we will reshare when yours does come out. And we'll also link to your YouTube channel so that people can check out what you're working on now.
Perfect.
This was such a treat, Orly. I'm excited to see what you crazy women come up with. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at Mutha, MUTHA.life for a daily look at all things Mutha. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mutha Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.